Hey, Limitless fans. This is your host, Aaron, enjoying a gloomy, rainy, I guess it's supposed to be spring day on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And speaking of spring and rain and gloom, in front of me, squared off face to face, is Michael Sims. Michael Sims is a solid friend of mine, best friend of mine. We've known each other forever, but that is a story for another time. Michael is here for part one of a two-part hunt series because he is going on his first bear hunt into Idaho, backcountry style, which we all know I love, for I believe it's either 5 days or 5 nights. He's going to tell us more about that. But man, I'm going to introduce to you Michael Sims. But first, I want to talk about real quick two sponsors for Limitless Podcast. The first being Hunting Day Coffee. Now, Michael and I have a disparity in our morning beverage. I prefer a nice hot cup of dark coffee. Michael prefers a nice hot swallow of tobacco spit in the morning. So that's where we have a disparity. Hunting Day Coffee, as we all know, is a sponsor of the Limitless Podcast. That listener code is Limitless 10. That will get you 10% discount on any of your coffee products at huntingday.com. Check out their coffee. They're fantastic. American roasted coffee out of the state of Virginia. And Steven, the owner, and his family and children, they're all avid hunters. They're a family of faith. They're a great company. Check them out. The second sponsor that we're going to talk about today for Sprocket and Chubbs is Phelps Game Calls. That is right. Phelps is a sponsor of the Limitless Podcast. And I know that Michael Sims is a fan of Phelps Game Calls. So you will use the code of Limitless 20 at Phelps Game Calls. That is right now, that is a one-time code. So use it wisely. When you decide to go shopping for a cartload of calls, make sure that you're ready to spend some dough, because that Limitless code with Phelps Game Calls right now is good for one-time use. So spend it wisely. With that said, Michael Sims, welcome to the Limitless Podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is my first one, and I'm excited to chit chat about a little bit of bear hunting.
Well, let's get into it. Tell us when you're going, tell us where you're going, and who you're going with.
Do I have to tell you where I'm going?
Well, tell us the unit.
I got you. So leaving next week, going for 5 days into Idaho, going with a friend out of Michigan who's never bear hunted before either. So it could be quite the interesting hunt. We're going in Unit 10, Lolo, I believe it's called Lolo Unit. And yeah, we'll be there 5 days. We're going to go back, stay back in there, backcountry. Looks like it's going to be a little chilly. There's still lots of snow up in there. So there may be a left turn south once we get there to try and find some snow lines.
Okay. So who is this gentleman that you're going elk hunting with?
So John is a guy out of Michigan. I met him 2 years ago when I was hunting in Colorado, and I pulled into a spot where I usually sleep at night. It's the only flat spot in Colorado in the unit I was hunting, and he was parked there, and I got up and started chit-chatting with him, and started feeling really bad. So he's like, hey, why don't you just park next to me? No big deal. So we chatted most of the night, and in the morning I was like, look, man, I'm not going hunting. So I said, here. I dropped him a pin. I said, go up there, make a few calls. He's never seen an elk in person, and that was I think his first or second year he's been elk hunting with a bow. First year with a bow, and went up there and harvested him a nice 4-point where my pin was at. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I went up there and hauled it off the mountain with him, and we've been friends since then. And he hunted down in southern Colorado last year when I harvested my 5x5 last year. He was going to give up his hunt and come help me haul my elk out since I was doing it by myself. But yeah, no, real solid guy. He's great to hunt with, and well, I've never really actually hunted with him, so it'll be all interesting. It'll be new, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about it's a treat because I don't hunt in the spring. I'm not a big turkey hunter, so this is going to be a treat to be out during the springtime.
I it amazes me that I can actually call you a best friend when you don't turkey hunt. I just doesn't. I don't know, man.
Hang on,
It's
I seem to
so
remember sitting in the woods and calling a bird in for you. It just didn't come my way, if you remember correctly.
so I don't. Now I
You don't
don't.
remember it that way, do you?
Absolutely not, because what you think is turkey calling is like somebody scratching a chalkboard. But anyhow, I mean that's
Anyhow.
yes, yes, you have sat in the woods and turkey hunted. I would have to say that you've snored more in the turkey woods, Michael, than you've actually hunted turkeys.
I like I like to sleep.
We're gonna fix that. So that's cool. That's one of the things that I really love about the outdoors, is especially if you're willing to take the step to go spend some time alone in the wilderness, right? Be it in a campground, an Airbnb, with your camp on your back, however, whatever that modality is to get you in the wilderness on your own, right? You're more apt to meet and connect with people than if you go with a core group, because when we go with a group, it can be a little cliquish sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and we might get into this conversation down the road, but I know for a fact when you and I rode motorcycles together, we could get in a motorcycle campground, and it may have no, it wasn't. It was typically Memorial
Yep.
weekends, and there would be other veterans around, and we would push those other veterans away from us so that we just had our own little tight space, right? So often, if you go at it alone, you open up more to those people that are around you, and you never know when you're going to make those really cool connections or friendships, right? I
Yeah.
think I think that's such a great story. Um, the other thing that I think is kind of interesting is, you ever killed a bear?
No.
I haven't either.
I've
And
seen them harvested behind dogs, but I've never. I mean, I was younger, so I didn't have the opportunity to run around the woods with a rifle. But I've seen them harvested, but I've never harvested one myself.
and you've seen bear in the wild.
Oh, absolutely, up close and personal. Yeah.
I've seen bear in the wild. And I had an opportunity to shoot one with you, but the scenario wasn't right, and I didn't want to be following the blood trail of a black bear in the thick clear cuts of the Washington coast after I put an arrow in it. To me, that just didn't sound
Wasn't
like
smart.
solid plan. So I bypassed on that. That was a close encounter where I could have harvested a bear, and I did have a bear tag at the time. But I've spent a lot of time in the wilderness. I've seen bear. I've never harvested a bear. John has never harvested a bear. What's unique and why I'm bringing this up is you and I were both born and raised and hunted Washington State, a lot of black bear. We both have lived in Virginia for extended periods of time, a lot of black bear. Over the counter tags for black bear in both of those states. I now live in Maryland, and I've hunted Maryland, and I've lived in Maryland. They are a draw state. I've never put in for bear. I've never hunted bear in Maryland, but I've seen bear in Maryland. I have been on a guided bear hunt in Maine, didn't even see a bear. John lives in Michigan. Michigan has a healthy bear population. He's never killed a bear. I think this is really cool that you guys are going to Idaho, non-resident backcountry hunt for spring bear. I love it.
So the question is, what is the draw for a hunter for, let's say, like my passion is elk. I love chasing those big dudes around. Why is my passion for elk any different than my passion would be for bear? What's the disconnect there in your ability to get the drive to go bear hunting or the drive to go elk hunting or one over the other?
Well,
I don't have that answer, obviously, but maybe after this trip that'll change. But everybody has a bucket list, right? So my bucket list is red stags. I want to go shoot one in New Zealand, and found out that's now out of my price range. You know,
Throwing that
wow,
money, making it rain, right?
wow, it's like $10,000 more than it was 5 years ago. So, so we just kind of, adjust our bucket list depending on our lifestyle and what we got going on in the world and what's going on in our lives. And, we're married, we have wives, we have children, we have all these things. And maybe it's just the path of least resistance where I have the opportunity to go hunt elk, and as long as I can stay upright, that's kind of my big passion. I want to shoot all three species. That's my goal. But yeah, maybe after this bear hunt, and as long as it's not too darn cold at nighttime, maybe it'll be fun, and I'll want to go back and do it again.
Sometimes it's we have a passion for what we know, and
Sure.
I know for me personally, I didn't pursue bears specifically because one, my dad did not. My dad always carried a bear tag.
Follow our heroes.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. My dad never hunted bear either. Well, besides behind dogs, but.
And for, a lot of bear hunting is either behind dogs or sitting over bait. My dad wasn't a bear hunter. Again, he carried a bear tag, but growing up, whenever we were elk or deer hunting, we always had a bear and a cougar tag in our back pocket, always. But we never went after them specifically. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago I started really gaining the interest in harvesting a bear. I have no desire to hunt behind a dog. I don't. Now, if I ever really pursue a mountain lion, maybe I'll go the dog route, because that's typically how you're successful with a cat. Not high on my list. Again, when I hunt, I typically have a cat tag in my pocket. But for bear, I don't like hunting out of blinds. I don't like hunting over bait, and I don't want to hunt. I will not hunt behind dogs. So for bear hunting, that makes it kind of tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the speculation that bear is not good eating. And I'm here to tell you that if you're hunting bear in the right area and you handle the bear correctly in the field at the time of harvest, bear is tasty. And if you learn to cook it right,
well, that's the key, cooking it right. Yeah, because they carry the bacteria that causes trichinosis. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And bear fat spoils easily. Bear is not something you can put in your freezer and have 18, 24 months later. The bear fat will spoil in the freezer. It's a known fact. So if you harvest a bear, you're better off to eat it within 6 to 12 months, whether you freeze it, can it, or freeze dry it. It will last the longest freeze dried. But again, the quality of that bear is, one, where's the bear living and what is it eating? What's its diet, or the staple of its diet? And then two, how you handle that bear meat as an outdoorsman, a woodsman, upon harvest and treating it at that point. So maybe
we do have cougar tags also.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. And if a lot of the guys on here that are veterans don't know that Idaho has a non-resident DAV program, if you're 60% or more, just for an example, John is not a veteran, and he paid upwards of, by the time it was all said and done, $300 or $350 for his tags. I hate to say that I bought everything and I paid less. I paid about $112. So and I think, if I'm correct, I think Idaho is the only place that does a non-resident DAV program. So, for the listeners out there, if you're a veteran and you want to go somewhere and you don't want to pay it, you want the least amount of cost out of your pocket, you may try to look in. You got to be 60. I think it's 60 or 40 or 60% disabled veteran. It's an extremely easy process to do.
So they're not the only state.
Okay.
Texas is free if you are, but it's 100%. If you're 100% disabled, any veteran can hunt for free in the state of Texas. Your license and tags.
Sign me up.
Well, but
Sign
here's
me up.
here's the difference between Texas and Idaho. There's pretty much zero public land in Texas. So you might be hunting for free as a disabled veteran in Texas, but you're going to pay a landowner to hunt in Texas.
Sure.
If you can obtain a non-resident DAV license and tag out of Idaho, well, Idaho is ample public wilderness and there's a lot of critters to be pursued. So it is a cool state to hunt.
I like Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what kind of backcountry experience does John have?
So John, I know as well as me. I've been out. I've not been on extended backcountry overnight hunts. Mine are, go 1 or 2 days because I'm usually hunting by myself because I'm retired and nobody can take that much time off. So I usually excursion out for a day or two. And I think John has been out a day or two by himself. I don't know that he hunts with a whole lot of people. So 5 days, I think, is going to be our long, both of us, and we got one other guy coming also, so it'll be 3 of us. I've never met the guy, so I don't know. It doesn't sound like he's done much backcountry hunting at all. So it could be the Three Stooges headed out to a watering hole. I have no, I don't know.
We'll say that this is definitely an arena where strength is in numbers, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you that I made this decision to go because bear were not high on my list. And John, when I was talking to him on the phone last year when I shot my elk and he wanted to come up and we were chit chatting, he wanted to go on this hunt, and I was like, man, you're going to be in grizzly country, my friend. And I was like, let's do this. And he was saying, I don't know about my friend. I don't know if he's going to be able to go, whatever. I was like, look, you're not going to go out there by yourself. So whether I just buy a tag and tag along to the spot and whatever, I was like, unless you swallow an air tag at the trailhead and go by yourself, I was like, there's no way you're going by yourself. So I'll pay for the tags. I've got the equipment already. I've got the time. I'll go in there with you, whether I hunt or not. And now that's changed because I'm pretty excited about getting in there and chasing the bear around. But yeah, and most of the decision was made because I didn't want him to go up in there by himself in grizzly country. The probability of him being attacked by a grizzly bear is extremely small, but the opportunities there are always there when they just come out of the dens and they're all very hungry. And so I just didn't want him hunting by himself. But since we planned this trip for about the last 3-4 months, I've been getting excited about getting up in there and chasing something around.
I think you guys are going to have such a great time. You brought up the fact that you hunt out of your vehicle quite a bit, which I know that. Listeners don't know that. Michael spends a lot of time hunting out of the bed of his truck. He has it all decked out, rigged out. He made his own bed system. Michael's a carpenter. It used to be by hobby. It's kind of by trade now. Retired Navy, and he has a woodworking business. It's called Michael's Rustic Designs. You can find him on do you still have your website open?
Facebook is open. The shop I've since closed since most of the people DM me anyway. Okay. But they can go on to Facebook and it's Michael's Rustic Design. Yeah.
Okay. So he carpentered his own bed system. It's brilliant. And he has a cap that us old guys used to call them canopies. He has a bed cap on his truck. And that's primarily how he hunts. Now, you brought something up a few minutes ago, chatting how you met John. Is you were going to the only flat ground in that area, and that brings up for all of you car and truck bed hunters. That's something that most people don't think about. It's when you're in an RV, you have leveling capability with the jacks on your RV, be it a camper or be it a pull behind or a fifth wheel, right? You can level that stuff. But when you're hunting out of a truck, if you can't find level ground, you're like sleeping on a slope.
Yeah. Well, and I want to be extremely, and I do a lot of it because I'd like to be extremely mobile. I know a lot of places in Colorado, and depending on what I see, the tracks, what the forge looks like, and all that, I can move, and I'm always usually on the move, driving from one unit to another area. And since I don't have to pull a trailer, and let's be fair, I decked out my wife's truck, so I can just get back into those places way back, especially in Montana. I mean, Montana, you can get 10, 15, 20 miles back, way back in there, and there's no way you're getting in there with a trailer, especially if it snows and you're on 4 chains and there's 3 feet of snow. You just can't get back in there. So I like to be mobile, and I like the feeling of being able to go back to a truck and have a nice warm place to sleep at night, no rain. I don't have to worry about critters. I can cook up a nice meal. I can watch a movie if I really want to. But I do hike. I mean, I do anywhere from, depending on the area, 3 to 10 miles a day, hiking through the mountains and accessing those places. So yeah, I mean, truck hunting is what you make it, but I'm telling you, it's comfy if you do it right.
I've seen your setup. I've just you and I talk a lot, and you always circle back to the fact of, yeah, there's a lot of things out there for me to hunt, but elk is just that thing for you, and it's something that you want to focus on for as long as you can do it. I'm that way with backcountry. There's a lot of ways that I can go hunt, right? And I have a new 3/4 ton that's actually, it's being built right now. Uh,
Congratulations, by the way.
GMC 2500 Sierra AT4. I'm super excited. Thank you. And I could 100% deck that truck out with a cap and a bed system and sleep in the back of the truck. My desire is to log as many nights for the rest of my life that I can, physically capable of, in the backcountry. That's where I prefer to be, whether I'm alone or with 1 or 2 other dudes. That's just where I really, really like to be. And I don't care what I'm pursuing. It can be deer, it can be turkey, it can be bear, it could be elk. It doesn't matter to me, as long as I'm in the backcountry doing it. So that's I'm really excited for you on this trip. I think I've said that probably 3 to 5 times now, Michael, during this episode so far, and we're maybe halfway through. So I'm probably going to say it 3 to 5 more times. But in 2020, Michael and I planned and executed an elk hunt together. And that elk hunt was intended to be a backcountry elk hunt. We both immersed ourselves in
wallet deprivation.
Yeah. We did, for sure. But Corey Jacobson and Donnie Drake of Destination
Elk 101.
Elk 101.
Yeah.
We watched a ton of Born and Raised and looked at all of their gear. We gained a ton of information from them, and we planned on doing that. And when we got out to Washington, the fires that year were terrible. It shut down a lot of our access that we had. We were confined. We were incredibly lucky that the Weyerhaeuser passes that we had submitted for, out of dumb luck, because we looked at a lot of different Weyerhaeuser areas.
Yeah.
It was dumb luck that we chose that one, and it remained open. But because of the way that particular Weyerhaeuser area was set up, there was no reason for us to pack in. So we set up a road. It was the end of a spur road that we set up our camp, and that's we just base camped it, right? Since then, it sounds like you really haven't ventured into the backcountry for very many extended trips. And man, for you guys to go do this, it's a new area for all 3 of you in Idaho. So it's based off of all e-scouting. Man, this is you guys are headed into a epic adventure.
Yeah, we've got a spot, and I don't know that it's going to come to fruition, only because of the amount of snow. I'm watching one of my best tools that I have found to use is the Idaho 511 and the Montana, I think, 501 apps, which you can look and see all the road cameras that are on the, the pass cameras and all that stuff. So I can monitor snow levels, I can monitor temperatures, and I can do it all right from physically see a camera in real time. So Lola Pass, which is 5,200 feet, right now, the roads are clear, but it looks like it's got a foot or 2 foot of snow on it, and we're going next week. The temps are getting down into the low 30s and sometimes the high 20s. And I just don't think it's going to burn off before we get there. So we've got a camp that we've pegged up in a canyon that's about 5.5 miles off the road. That's going to put us at about 55 or 5,600 feet. So I don't know that that's going to be attainable at this point. So we are kind of chit-chatting. We chatted this morning about it, and we may try to head a little bit south to try and get out of, because we're really looking for some snow lines with some good green feed and that type, and a water source and good places to glass that we can look. So yeah, I mean, that's what hunting's about. I mean, you plan for everything, and then you get there and 90% of your gear stays in the truck because you only need 5% of it. So yeah, so we're going to redirect, and once we get up there, we're going to take a look at it. We're kind of worried about getting back in the mountains because of the snow. I mean, if those roads aren't used and they've got 2 feet of snow on them and they've been ice packed, I mean, even if you have 4 chains on, it's going to be pretty treacherous to get in there. So we'll get up there and we'll make those decisions once we get there, and we may head a little bit south.
Definitely spring bear and spring mountain turkey. If you're in an environment or a state that has a lot of snow, we don't deal with that a lot out here in the Appalachians by the time April hits, right? Most of the snow is gone by March in the Appalachians. Well, I shouldn't say that. If you get up into the New England states, that might be a little bit different. But out west in the Pacific Northwest, there's still a lot of snow on the ground in April, and the turkey will follow the snow line. So the bear and the turkey both are following that snow line, getting all that new green growth, right? So that is 100% where you guys need to be. That's going to be such a cool adventure. So let's talk gear.
Got plenty of that.
People love to talk about gear, right? And I will warn you that when you embark on that first big long trip into the wilderness, you're going to take way more stuff than you need. So this is going to be a fun learning. You're going to be like, why did I carry all that weight?
Hey, I weighed everything a couple days ago with my gun on my pack. I'm at 52 pounds. So I think I'm doing well.
That's
for 5 days.
That's a good load, especially knowing that rifle that you're carrying is probably a 9-pound rifle.
It's 9.3 pounds.
There you go. So
with ammo.
That's a good quality pack load.
Yeah. It's stuffed. I mean, it's breaking at the seams, but it's all in there.
Okay, so let's why don't you give us a rundown on what you have, what you're planning to take with you?
So I'm an Exo Mountain gear fan. I've used their packs for quite a few years now. I'm still on my first pack. I did buy every one of their bags except for their 6400, which I almost bought Monday. But I thought if I bought a bigger bag, I would just take more stuff. So I'm running a 4800 K3, and I'm taking for the first time, I'm taking a floorless shelter. I'm taking the Rincon 2 with the titanium stove. I've never had a hot tent, but I thought, man, if there's a better time to use it, I think this is going to be the best time to use it. So taking the Rincon, I do have a half insert, just so I'm not on the ground. And what else? I'm taking Enlightened equipment. I'm taking the Revelation 0 degree quilt. What else?
What kind of sleeping pad?
Oh, what is it? The Climate Static V, insulated. Okay. Yeah. So I should be good. And I think what I'll probably end up doing is once I get up there and get the tent ready to be set, I'm probably going to cut some boughs and put it underneath there to add a little insulation between me and the ground if there's still some snow and the ground is frozen. So maybe I'll get a little insulation from there. What else am I taking? Let's see. As far as bino harness, I'm taking the FHF Pro M, and I've got the new. If everybody uses that gear and they haven't seen their new airframe harness, they've taken their old one and revamped it and cut holes in it so you don't sweat right here where your bino harness sits. So I'm going to give that a shot. And what else are we taking? The Vortex binoculars, 10 by 52 HDs.
10 by
razors.
50.
10 by 50. 10 by 50 HDs. Yeah, the razors, which are new. I upgraded from the 10 by 42s. And that was, I have the big spotter, and I thought, man, do I really need to take a big spotter in there and carry that extra weight? So it's, when you go on these backcountry hunts, it's all about saving weight. Ounces create pounds and pounds create pain. And there's, when you get an elk down and carry a quarter out, the weight is the weight. But if you can cut it down, your pack-in weight, you do everything you can to do that. So let's see, what else am I taking? Garmin InReach, which we all love. I like to be able to communicate. So now that I'm getting older and I go out in the woods by myself, the wife's like, look, no more of this being out a month and I don't get to talk to you and know if you're alive. So it was mandated in our marriage vow renewal that I get a Garmin InReach so that she can contact me or I can contact her. And don't get that wrong. If you're going out for an extended period of time in the woods, you need to have something that you can either communicate, or your loved ones can get on a computer screen and hit a button and see exactly where you're at. There's just too many things to go wrong, especially if you're a little older, or if you have some kind of a health issue or whatever. You need to do that for peace of mind for people at home. I didn't realize that the first couple of years, and wife finally just said, look, that's enough. You're not going out there for a month and I don't hear from you. So yeah, so we're going with that. Let me think, what else?
What are you doing for food?
Oh yeah, I'm not as healthy as most people when it comes to my food. So I'm taking the Peak Refuel, like a regular day would be a Peak Refuel. I'm taking some cheap ramen from Kmart and a Snicker bar, some nuts, a couple Mountain bars, Mountain Ops bars, and a couple of granola bars. That's what I eat in a day, and some gummies, because I like to snack on a gummy when I'm sitting on a stump. So yeah, and that may change, next year or this year. I might look into something a little more healthier to take up in there with me. I just find that using those calories, and it just keeps me moving all day. But at the end of the day, you just kind of go, you crash pretty hard because then taking all that sugar. But anyway, so drink a couple live IVs in a day, and it just seems to keep me moving.
Jetboil?
Using a Jetboil Flash. Yeah,
Okay.
Used it for quite a few years now. No problems. It's a great system. I did end up buying I think it's MSR, that little electrical clicker, because sometimes the clicker on the boiler doesn't work all the time. I don't know if that's a design flaw or whatever, but I've always had problems with it. So I either take a lighter or I take that. Now I'm going to try that little clicker this year and see if that helps when that thing won't light. I did change my water filtration system. I used Sawyer a few years, and we've discussed this off air, but I've had some issues with getting it restarted and working properly and not having to sit on the dang bag to get the water to come out. I changed to the Cadayan, or the Catadyne Hunter Pro, which is actually a hand pump. It's a little bit bigger than the Sawyer, but with the very few moving parts, and it can be repaired on the trail. And I hooked up my 2-liter bag for my pack on there, and I pumped it in the kitchen, pumped it, and I could fill that bag up in a minute. So I thought, well, let me give that one a shot this year. It's got high ratings. The reviews are great on it. A lot of the thru hikers in the Appalachian Trail use it. So I switched my water system this year.
I'll be curious to hear about that, Michael. I'm a big time Sawyer fan, and I haven't had issue with mine yet, and I'm still using the same one that I purchased in 2000, and I think I bought it in either 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And so I'm still using the same squeeze. One thing that I really, really like about Sawyer, this is a big plug for Sawyer, is what they do internationally for third world countries. And that is, I will always try to apply my Sawyer products to the environments that I'm in because of what Sawyer does for the world as a whole. That's why. I mean, and if I bought a new one, the water would flow a lot easier. I have to even back flushing mine. It's just, I mean, man, I've used and abused my Sawyer, right? But the day will come when I have to replace that one. But I got a lot of memories tied to that Sawyer squeeze. Unless I know that I'm going to go hunt somewhere where the water sources are very, very few, and it's almost like I'm going to be creating a seep in order to
Mhm.
obtain water, and my squeeze will not work. That would be, I think, the only time right now. But I am curious to hear your post trip review on that filter, how it's worked for you.
Yeah, Catadine. I mean, I did a lot of research on it, and it's getting great reviews. And I don't shop at REI very often, but I'm in California, so I don't have very many options to go look at hiking equipment. So I talked to a guy that's a through hiker, has done the Appalachian Trail twice. Said that thing is just die hard. It's, you don't have any issues with it. And the Sawyer, I want to make sure my stuff's reliable, and I pay for reliability. And squeezing that Sawyer as hard as I had to squeeze to get to get it to trickle out the end, I'm just like, and then watch the videos, and the lady grabs hers and goes and it shoots this big fountain out. I'm like, I don't know. But and you're right, you bring up a good point, because Sawyer is dependent on water movement and the ability to get it into the water, to get to be able to get that bag full. If you don't have that option, the Catadine has, it's a pump, so you stick the little thing down there with a filter on it, and it's double filtered, which can be cleaned extremely easy. But yeah, I'm excited about using it. I don't think we're going to have any problem finding water up there, no matter where we go. So yeah,
You
so
may
we'll see.
you may have the problem of having too
Too
much
much.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm taking. I have 2 liter on my pack, which my pack is so stuffed right now that I couldn't put a water bladder. I couldn't fill my water bladder up, so I'm taking a Nalgene bottle that's on the side of my pack, which
Okay.
I'll put liquid IV in. But I bring in 2 3-liter bags, and I don't use as much water as you guys do, because you guys drink way too much coffee in the backcountry. So I don't need a whole ton of water, but I think I'll be able to manage with 8 liters of water in 5 days, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I haven't gone that long, so but if I do my calculations right, my food and all that stuff, I'll be well under 8 liters. So we'll see. I'm excited. It's coming next week.
That's that's great. So talk to us about your rifle. What are you taking with you to fill a tag with?
So I'm taking, as you know, the Winchester Model 70 XTR Sporter 30-06. Has a Nikon Monarch 3 4x16 BDC on there. I am using the Vortex 168 grain. I think they're the TTSX bow tails.
Mhm.
And I went out and took it out to the range, because I'm not a long range shooter. I love to get up close, which is why I'm a passionate about bow hunting. If you're shooting, in my opinion, I mean, if you shoot anything over 60 yards, it's too far away, even with a rifle. I mean, so me as a long shooter just wasn't very efficient at it. So grabbed a buddy of mine who we know, Ronnie Rivera, and went out to the range and helped me with that. And I was hitting a pie plate at 400 yards with it, with those bullets. So I feel pretty confident out to about 300. But we'll definitely try to get, if the terrain allows, to get much closer than that. Because I'm not a long range guy. I like to get up and pet them, before I eat them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, whoa, 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 whoa. We haven't talked about clothing or layering, but here's an important question. What are you putting on your feet?
Oh, let me see. Kenetrex.
Okay.
So I'm a huge Kenetrex fan. My oldest boy lives in Montana, lives in Bozeman, which is the mecca for hunting apparel, hunting equipment. I mean, you have Kenetrex there, you have Stone Glacier, you have Sitka, you have FHF is there. It's all within 10 miles.
Peaks is there.
Peaks is there. So it's all there. So when I go visit my son, try to do that every 8 weeks because of my grandson up there. Not just because of my grandson, I love my kid, but I get the opportunity to go into these shops and actually talk to the owners and put their equipment on before I buy it over the thing. And going to Kennetrek and talking to Eric there, and a couple of years ago I went in there and I was wearing a certain brand of boots. I don't know if I want to say it over the line, but well, I'm going to say it. I was wearing Christie's, and I was hunting in Colorado, which we all know is either up or down in the areas where I hunt, and I ended up getting we call it toe bang, getting blood blisters on the ends of my toes. And when I went into Kennetrek, and I was like, I need to fix this. Well, come to find out, I was wearing boots that were too small. So I was wearing boots that were comfortable to me on flat terrain and not taking into account up or down. So he ended up putting me in a pair of boots that were a little narrower, and they were actually a size and a half larger than what I usually wear, and has completely taken care of the problem, and extremely comfortable. They're the Mountain Extreme 400s. I'm taking the insulated and the non. I've got 5 pairs of their boots, but I'm taking the non-insulated and the insulated, and I'll make the call at the trailhead depending on which ones I use.
Okay. What
Yeah.
How are you layering for this trip?
So that's a big question because the layering is going to depend on conditions at the trailhead. But I am planning. I am not specific to a certain brand. I use a lot of Sitka gear and I use a lot of Stone Glacier gear. So I'll be a mismatch between the two, but I'll wear a merino base layer, which actually is from Black Ovis. I'll use their merino stuff, and then depending on what the weather's like, how many layers I'll have. Plus, I'm taking a puffy jacket and puffy pants for when we're glassing and when I'm sleeping. That's what I use that for. But other than that, just your basic wind protection, rain gear, a set of rain gear. But yeah, but between Stone Glacier and Sitka, my system will be intertwined depending on what I need.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, that puffy ensemble that you're carrying, that is
Mm-hmm.
part of your layering, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of tree stand hunters, a lot of ground blind hunters, guys that are walking out their back door or walking from the truck a couple hundred yards, mile tops. They don't think of layering as the same. And in my opinion, that they should, because one of the common complaints with hunters is we're always battling scent. So the
Mm-hmm.
complaint is by the time I get to the spot that I want to hunt and I'm dressed for the conditions that I'm going to be hunting in, I'm soaked with sweat. So we fix that problem with layering. And when you walk away from your vehicle or your mode of transportation, I should say, for periods of days, your level of comfort and safety is stuffed in the pack on your back. So you have to learn what that layering system is. And I laugh because no matter what you watch, what you read, it seems that all backcountry guys have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And I did it. And I mean, I started backcountry hunting a long time ago, before knowledge was at your fingertips and before we had really cool gear, and you just paid the man, right? You took everything that you had and you paid the man. And I remember when you and I were planning for our 2020 hunt, I was packing way too much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Michael's a prior competitive bass fisherman. And when I got into bass fishing, one of the things that Michael instilled in me was, dude, don't focus on all of the different bass baits that are out there. You really only need a couple. And it's really, you need a black plastic, you need a green pumpkin plastic, and maybe a white spinnerbait. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you could take those three items and catch bass year round,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, layering camo clothing, the pattern and the clothing itself is very similar to bass baits. The bass industry is flooded with bass baits. You name it. I mean, pick I'm going to call it a genre, right? Or pick a style. Let's go with worms, right?
Yeah.
How how many hundreds of worms are there? The different sizes, the different textures, the different lengths, the different colors. Do they
And the
have
different
flake?
presentation.
Do they not have flake, right? Is it
Yeah.
a paddle tail worm? Is it not a paddle tail? I mean, there's so many different worms. And I mean, there's probably 100 different companies that make worms.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
each company makes probably 50 different worms or more, right? I mean, how many different worms does Yamamoto alone make,
Oh,
right?
thousands.
And you only need two. You need a
That's
black worm
absolutely.
and you need a green pumpkin worm.
Yes.
So anyhow,
I won a lot of tournaments with those two, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at our camo and our layering, the animals don't care about camo. They care about movement,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the biggest piece. But from the layering standpoint, I've I have bins. I'm a Badlands fan. There's no secret about that. I have several totes stuffed full of Badlands because when I took the Badlands bait and went full in, I wanted everything.
You needed everything. You thought you needed everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And I've got items that have never seen the woods
Well, we all
because
have. If you are a backcountry hunter or just a dedicated hunter every year, you're going to have an extra tote or two full of stuff you don't use that your
yep.
wife's going to go, why don't you sell that? You're like, no, baby, I might need it someday.
It's like that scrap piece of 2x4 that's always leaning in the corner of the garage of the shop, right? I
I
never know when I'm going to need that 5 3/4 inch piece of 2x4 that's sitting over there. It's
yeah,
clean, it's not warped, there's no cracks in it. I might need that, right?
just might need a doorstop someday.
Who knows? Who knows? But I can say that the more time you spend on your feet with your life on your back, you're gonna learn what that layering system is for you. And I have people ask me a lot, well, what's your layering system? Like, I will share with you what mine is, but your level of comfort, your tolerance to temperature difference and pain or discomfort is going to be different than mine, right? Mine is super simple. And I have found that because I tree saddle hunt in the background. So I'm taking that elevated hunter's mentality out into the wilderness with me. I'm not on my feet moving all day long every time that I go hunt. So I'm static in a tree, which guys get really cold pretty dang fast when they're static in a tree. Um, how does that layering system work for me for a backcountry hunter and that elevated style of hunting? And it's really pretty simple. And do I have to sleep in every item that I take in with me on occasion, including my rain gear? Yeah, I do, but that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make because it's saving me space and weight in my pack and on my back, right? And that's again, that's part of that. That's there's more there's more to the backcountry than the journey of going from your mode of transportation to your first pitch site or wherever that pitch site is going to be, right? There's a lot of different journeys. There's the nutrition journey, there's your layering system
Mm-hmm.
journey, there is the what state or what new area do I want to hunt next in Journey? Who do I want to do it with next Journey? What animal am I going to pursue next in
Mhm.
the backcountry? There's so many different trails that you're going to walk as a backcountry hunter. And that's what I'm
Well,
really excited about.
yeah, and I struggle with that because the one thing I don't ever want to be is cold. I struggle with that every time even when I go from the truck and I know where I'm going to be walking and what am I wearing when I leave the truck and what's the temperature going to be when I'm walking back? Do I need to put in an extra jacket? Am I going to sit down for 2 hours or 4 hours and glass a side of a ridge? And am I going to get colds? Because the problem is that most of the people will, one, leave their tree saddle, their tree stand, or their glassing spot for one reason, two reasons. Either they're no animals or they get cold. So I always struggle, and you always see them, you see these marketing things, they're like, well, if you go in the woods, you got to spend more time there, and the only way you can do that is keep warm. So you need this $800 16-inch thick puffy jacket, which is, so yeah, so being, because I struggle with that, even packing this, knowing it's going to be cold, I'm like, golly, what am I going to leave the truck in? And now I'm taking all of it and putting it in my truck, so I make those decisions at the trailhead, depending on what the conditions, because they're always changing, right?
Mhm.
So, and I think for your listeners, I think that in my honest opinion, I think there's only two things that are going to save your life in the outdoors in the backcountry, and one is your clothing, and the other is your sleep system. So, if you're going to put a little money into a couple of areas, I think those two areas are the two areas that you need to focus on, because they're the only two things that are going to keep you warm and out of the elements. The rest of it you can deal with one way or the other. But your clothing and your sleep system are the most important. That's what I spent most of my money on when I decided that backcountry was something I wanted to do. I was focusing my money on my clothing, my layering, and my sleep system, because I don't want to be cold. And I want to be out of the elements and safe. If something happens, we get a storm, we get a snowstorm, which is why I'm excited about this new hot tent, because I've never used one.
It's an experience, man. It
Yeah.
really is. I hope you enjoy it. It adds a level of work to your trip,
Yeah.
because now you have to obtain a fuel source, because it makes no sense. I mean, and that stove that you're using is super lightweight. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. It's an Argali titanium Skyline stove.
Yeah.
A super high quality stove, super lightweight. I'm a huge fan. I love it. Um, but in order to have that stove, you're packing in that extra weight, and now you have to spend time gathering a fuel source, and you're going to learn quick that you can scramble around and pick up dead stuff off the ground, and it burns so fast. That stove
Mm-hmm.
burns hot and fast. It really, really does. Even if you damp it down, if you're not using the right fuel, you're going to burn through your wood pile pretty quick. And then not only that, you'll be waking up to stoke the fire quite a bit, just because it's going to burn that old dried wood so fast.
Yeah, and
So
I
there's
don't know. I don't know that we're even. And now that there's been snow on the ground for 3 or 4 months, I don't know that we're going to be able to find a dry source that's going to, So there's a whole lot of stuff out there that.
Mhm.
So I'm actually packing some stuff in case we can't. I can't get this stove to. I mean, I'll get it to work one way or the other. But if I don't have a good wood source that's dry enough to actually burn, then I always take. I'm going to have an alternate method to stay warm. So
Okay.
so
So I mean, you said the temps are low 30s, right?
they're low 30s. Well,
Yeah,
at nighttime, high 20s, low 30s.
yeah, and having a 0 degree quilt
Mm-hmm.
with your layering system, that the stove is not needed for comfort. Let me rephrase that. It provides a level of
Well,
comfort for
comfort.
sure,
Mm-hmm.
mental more than anything.
Sure.
You will sleep comfortably, Michael, and in the 20s and 30s in that 0 degree quilt, with your layering on.
Mm-hmm.
What the stove provides is a heat source to dry socks. You can dry the insoles of your boots. You can dry your boots. You can dry other articles of clothing. And man loves fire. You know?
We do.
Yeah, we love fire. So when you come back from a long day and you crank that little stove off, man, I being being curled up in my Argali Rincon with that stove by my lonesome with that fire going, it's just, I was happy. I was
Mm-hmm.
content. It was, I read a book. It was just fantastic. It's no different than if you can have a fire in a fire pit somewhere, right? It's kind of like, it's where do people want to gather in a home when there's some type of a house party or a get together? People typically navigate to the kitchen. That
Mm-hmm.
is that is the place of comfort, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's where your food, water, and shelter is at. And that's what man truly needs is food, water, and shelter. That's what keeps you alive. Your layering system keeps you comfortable. That stove in your tent is going to provide a level of comfort that you've never experienced while backpacking before. And John and that other gentleman, they're going to be a little bit jealous when they come back from a long day of moving on their feet and they might be wet and you're chilling in that Rincon, not chilling in the Rincon because that titanium stove is burning underway. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
But it does, you're going to have to forage for fuel. Are you taking a
Mm.
bones? Are you taking a saw?
I it's sitting on my bed, and yeah, and I am, yes, I think I'm going to have a small one, that pops out, and I think I'm going to throw it in there because I want to be able to cut boughs and stuff to put underneath my pad and stuff. Yeah, but I think I'm going to take one. It's sitting there. I keep looking at it, and then I keep looking at weight, and I'm like, is it? So yeah, but all together with the carbon pole, the insert, the tent itself and the stove and stovepipe and everything is 5.2 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That weighs as much as my copper spur with the hotel fly on it and takes up a quarter of the room. Like I literally can put my whole sleep. And if anybody understands the exo packs, they have the big tube holster on the side. I can stick everything except for the actual stove in that little side pocket. Everything. And I was like, holy smokes, look how much more room I got. I can put more stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I went back and went, God, I don't need to take any more stuff.
So
But
I want to talk about two companies briefly that since we're talking about shelters right now. I have the Big Agnes copper spur with a hotel. And I love it. I've
mm-hmm.
packed that thing into several places. I've lived in it for 8 days straight. I love it. And it is a high quality shelter. I think it's just under 5 pounds. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it clears 5 pounds with the entire system. I don't think I could be wrong, but it takes up quite a bit of space in your pack. But
Yeah.
it is super comfortable. Let's talk about Argali. Incredible teepee style shelter. I own
Mm-hmm.
two. I have the Owyhee and I have the Rincon. And I bought the Owyhee because I was transitioning from my Big Agnes. I wanted something smaller and lighter, really compact. That was a huge slap in the face when I went from the Big Agnes copper spur 2 with the hotel fly to the Owyhee. The I lost a lot of real estate
Mm-hmm.
on the ground to sleep in and maneuver in and to keep my gear in. I really, really did. When you look at the difference between the Rincon and the Owyhee made by Argali, you're looking at a 5-ounce difference between those two systems. And the real estate that you obtain on the ground when it's pitched between those two is significant. The
Mm-hmm.
Rincon is a true 2-person shelter if need be.
Yes.
And so and for what's taking up volume in your pack and the weight that shelter comes in at, I mean it's peanuts. It
Mm-hmm.
really is. And man, I've had my Argali in some pretty nasty stuff now, and they're awesome.
Yeah, and I called and talked to them on the phone, the customer service, and talked to them. I made the huge mistake, which we should never, ever, ever do. Don't ever open a box with a razor knife. And I actually cut my insert, um, the bag mostly, in a little tiny hole in the bottom of my thing, which I repaired. But I got a hold of Argali and said, "Hey, I'm dumb, and I opened this thing and I cut my bag, so I got nowhere to stick my thing." So the lady actually got on the phone and said, "Hey, look, we don't carry extra ones, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'll send you one. You send me yours back, and we'll just repair it. We'll use it here in the shop." I mean, it was just instant, like, no problem, take care of you. And that is really what makes people come back to these companies and use them when you're dumb and you make a mistake, and they know it's a 5 cent bag, which in the future, if you're going to need to make another purchase and you go, "Oh, our Golly took care of me. Let me go take a look." And there are other things from our Golly that I'm interested in purchasing. I don't need it right at the moment, but and I told the lady, I was like, that's great. I'm glad you guys are taking care of me. I said, you guys have my business. As long as you take care of me, I will be a purchaser of your equipment. And it's high quality stuff. It's great stuff. So I'm really interested in getting out there and pitching it and using it and seeing, because I do like my copper spur. I feel safe in it. And I posted a picture of my Argali on my hunting site, and my mother came back and said, "Well, that doesn't look very bear proof, Michael." So but I'm excited about using it. I'm excited about their equipment, and I got this information actually from your podcast. And I let you do a lot of the gear review and a lot of gear use, and then I kind of use you as a sounding board and find out if it's something that works for me, because it doesn't make sense to just buy and not use. What are the conditions? Where are you going? How much room do you need? And so I spent the money on the Argali, and right now it looks like it was probably one of the best sleep system investments that I've made, other than I'm going to really, really miss my copper spur because I really like that tent.
It's copper spur. It's a great tent, but Argali knocked it out of the park. They really, really did. And they're a great company. Josh Kirchner is their marketing dude, or their media guy, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Solid dude, incredible hunter, backcountry junkie. And they're doing it right. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, what else do you want to talk about with this upcoming elk hunt? Is there anything else that we haven't covered? Is there anything that you want to share? Is there anything on your mind before we wrap this episode up?
No, I think the whole thing about backcountry hunting is to just get out of the truck and do it. You don't have to have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment. You just need to take the leap and go do it, and be in the backcountry and know your surroundings and enjoy the peacefulness that God's created on this earth, and go after the animals that make you happy, whether that by yourself or not by yourself. But a lot of people don't backcountry hunt because they're scared of the things that could happen. Well,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that could happen in our lives every day, and we take those chances. So I think once you do it, and I think you're going to enjoy it, as long as you don't put yourself in an environment that's not conducive to your comfort level. Meaning, don't go out when it's minus 20 in a rincon tent to try and hunt yak or something, But yeah, no, I'm excited about going. I'm excited about the adventure. I'm excited about hanging out with these two guys and enjoying the woods, and hopefully that the hunt turns out to be successful, and not just successful in the harvest, because the harvest is not the best part of the hunt. The best part of the hunt is the time you spend in the woods with friends, and doing the adventure and overcoming the obstacles, and sitting around the fire and laughing and having a good time, and enjoying each other's company. That's what it's all about. The harvest is just the icing on the cake.
So, Michael, one of my favorite movie quotes of all times is Al Pacino's character in Heat. You can get killed walking your doggy.
You can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
really puts it into perspective, right? You can get killed walking your doggy.
Well, and Jeff Foxworthy said the same thing. He says, "Man, when I was a kid, I used to take frogs to school." He said, "Hell, if you brought a frog to school now, they'd shoot it." I mean, that is unfortunately the way that our society has gone. And any opportunity that we can take and decompress, because that's my decompress time. When I go out in the woods, that's where I reload and decompress for the other 8 months of the year that I'm not hunting. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And as long as I'm upright, and someday you may have to push me around in a wheelchair and put me up next to a stump so I can put my sandwich there. But until I can't do it anymore, hopefully it's the last thing I do is spend my time in the woods, because that's where I'm the most peaceful.
Absolutely. The dark is just darkness. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of guys are uncomfortable. I don't want to say they're afraid of the dark. I mean, it's harsh, and I'm typically pretty black and white. A lot of guys they're afraid of the dark. They're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable alone in the dark or in the wilderness in the dark. A lot of guys, they don't want to get cold and wet, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a dream, if you have the desire to be in the backcountry, you need to overcome the darkness. You've got to accept the fact that you're probably going to get cold and wet, and you need to go and experience something great, because it will be the experience of a lifetime. Yep.
Well said.
All right, man. Well, if that's all that you have for us, man, thank you for being on the Limitless podcast. I'm going to answer this for Michael. Michael has an Instagram page and he has a Facebook page. It's Timber and Tines Outdoors. And it's not that he's that active on it. I'm hopefully going to encourage him to be a little more active on his Instagram and Facebook page with his outdoor adventures. And if you want to find him, if you want to find a little bit of information out about Michael and where he's at and what he's doing on some of his hunting adventures, it will be through Timber and Tines Outdoors. And with that, I am Aaron Ritter. I am the Limitless Podcast. You will find it under Limitless Outdoors. I have Instagram and Facebook as well, and that would be Limitless Outdoors, LIMB. Spell it correctly, please. Also have some YouTubes. You will find these podcasts on all of your major podcast platforms and also on YouTube. Please make sure to give us a listen. Leave me a review, please, and like, follow, and download. Thanks again for joining us. Michael, be limitless.
Thank you.